Nobody touches the ball. 19 seconds into the shot clock. She brings it up. They're down 9. She brings it up and jacks open a 3. You can't do that with professional players out there. You can't do that with bucket getters like Kelsey Mitchell out there. This is what frustrates your team.
19 seconds into the shot clock. Nobody else has touched the ball. Team's down 9 points. And she jacks up an open 3 from the logo. That's not superstar basketball. That's selfish basketball. And what you just watched is the exact moment that perfectly captures why the Indiana Fever are stuck in mediocrity despite having the most popular player in women's basketball history on their roster. Because Caitlin Clark has a problem that nobody wants to talk about. She might be uncoachable.
In that third quarter, it was disgusting. There's no excuse for it. I said it time and time. Some of these passes are unnecessary. It was a bad third quarter in terms of the turnovers. After coming out, and she was on her way to another 30-point double-double. She started off hot again, was on another heater, and things just turned upside down once again.
Look at Maurice's face right there. That's the expression of someone who's been watching this pattern repeat itself game after game, and he's finally had enough of the excuses, because here's what actually happened in that third quarter against Connecticut. Caitlin Clark was on pace for another 30-point double-double. She'd started the game on fire, hitting shots from everywhere, making plays, doing what superstars do. And then the third quarter arrived, and it all fell apart. 7 turnovers, careless passes, unnecessary risks, bad shots with 19 seconds still on the shot clock. And the most telling part, her teammates standing around watching it happen, unable to say a word because she's untouchable in that organization.
Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark are just as bad of defenders. Kelsey Mitchell don't guard nobody. People are driving right by her. Kelsey Mitchell, you said, oh, you can't take shots like this with a bucket getter like Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell didn't score a single basket the whole second half. She was awful in the game. But you know what the truth is, Jason? No one cared what Kelsey Mitchell was doing before Caitlin Clark. And they still don't care when she don't play defense, when she jacks up shots. I have cut up film on YouTube of Kelsey Mitchell, nobody else touching the ball. She's dribbling 9-10 times and just jacking up shots. The same way you cut up this stuff for Caitlin Clark.
Now watch what happens when someone dares to criticize her teammate instead. Maurice breaks down every single possession where Kelsey Mitchell got blown by on defense, every bad shot she took, every moment she failed to contribute in the second half when she went scoreless. And here's the thing that makes this analysis so devastating. He's right. You could create the exact same low-light reel for Kelsey Mitchell that Jason Whitlock created for Caitlin Clark. The difference, nobody cared what Kelsey Mitchell was doing before Caitlin arrived. And they still don't care when she makes the same mistakes. Because there's only one player on that roster who's supposed to be great. Only one player who was supposed to transform the franchise. And that player is currently playing the lowest IQ basketball of any star in the WNBA.
Something I read about Dean Smith over 30 years ago, and I've been trying to disprove it, and I can't. He said there's only 2 ways to make a turnover. You either got to be careless or selfish. And he's 100% right on that. And I'll tell you something that you missed, Jason. If you're in a coach's locker room, coaches consider, those shots you say she took that was ill-advised with 15 seconds on the clock and nobody touched it and led to transition buckets. We call those shooting turnovers. It's the same thing. There's no if you take that long shot and it hits the rim and they're going the other way, there's no defense for it. You're not going to be able to set up your defense. And so
Charles just dropped the most important insight of this entire discussion, and most people probably missed it. He said there are only 2 ways to commit a turnover, careless or selfish. That's it. Every single turnover Caitlin Clark commits falls into one of those 2 categories. And then he introduced another concept that coaches use in film sessions, shooting turnovers. When you take a bad shot early in the shot clock with 19 seconds left and nobody else has touched the ball, and it leads to a transition bucket for the other team, that's functionally the same as a turnover. You've given the other team an easy opportunity to score because you couldn't wait for a better shot. And Caitlin Clark commits shooting turnovers at an alarming rate for someone who's supposed to be a floor general and team leader. But here's what makes this situation truly complicated. She's been asked to play a certain way her entire life. At Iowa, she was the offense. If she wanted to pull up from 30 feet with 15 seconds on the shot clock, that was encouraged. If she wanted to dominate the ball and make every decision, that was her role. She won games that way. She set records that way. She became the most popular player in women's basketball that way.
To play a certain way her whole life, that they're just not going to let her play in the WNBA. I mean, Stephanie White is like, no. We're not just going to give you the ball. You're not going to shoot it when you feel like it. You're not going to just dribble up and shoot a logo three and a step back three. We have other people on this team who are really good that needs to touch the basketball. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in. Because those shots you saw her take, Jason, well, she took those at Iowa and it was no big deal. You know, she can't, but she didn't have Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston on the court with her. And I'll tell you what, not only Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, right now, as we sit here today, you know who's shooting the ball better than anybody in the WNBA?
Sophie
Cunningham. So there's weapons out there all over the place. They got to be utilized. She's never had to play that way before. You know, she got very, very careless in that third quarter. And I don't know, you pointed this out, I think, the conversation she...
And there it is, the body language that everyone's talking about but nobody wants to address directly. That conversation with Stephanie White on the sideline where Caitlin just completely dismisses whatever her coach is trying to tell her. The eye rolls, the shoulder shrugs. The visible frustration aimed at her own teammates when she's the one making the mistakes. Charles nailed it when he compared it to working with someone who walks into the room with terrible body language and immediately makes everyone wish they weren't there. That's what Caitlin's teammates see every time she gets frustrated. Now, if a role player did this, you could bench them, you could sit them down and tell them you're not dealing with that attitude today. But when your franchise player, the face of the league, the person selling out arenas and driving television ratings does it, you're stuck. Because you can't bench her. You can't publicly call her out without creating a media firestorm. And you certainly can't trade her without the entire fan base revolting. So Stephanie White has to stand there on national television, trying to coach a player who clearly doesn't want to be coached, while everyone watching can see the dysfunction playing out in real time. The comparison to Allen Iverson keeps coming up, and it's more accurate than people want to admit. Iverson had all the talent in the world. He could take over games, he was must-watch television every night, and he drove Larry Brown absolutely crazy because he wouldn't accept coaching. He wanted to play his way on his terms with his style. And you know what happened? He made one NBA Finals and never won a championship, because at the highest level, individual brilliance isn't enough. You need to be coachable. You need to fit into a system. You need to make your teammates better instead of making them stand around and watch.
Get it. But I do notice how you did not respond to, you said you watched the video of all the bad shots that I showed Kelsey Mitchell taking, and Kelsey Mitchell went scoreless the whole second half.
Let me answer that question, Maurice. Charles, because I want to get Dre and Steve in here, but hey man, there's different expectations for Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell, her role on that team is to get a bucket, period, end of story. Caitlin Clark's going to do the playmaking, and it doesn't excuse Kelsey Mitchell because she does do some playmaking. But bottom line, they give Kelsey Mitchell the ball to go get a bucket, Kelsey, because that's what you can get to the rim better than anybody in the WNBA. You can create your own mid-range or three-point shot better than anybody in the WNBA, and you do it relative.
Drakta just identified the core issue that everyone keeps dancing around. Expectations are the tax you pay for being great, and Caitlin Clark is paying that tax right now, whether she likes it or not. But here's where it gets even more problematic. When you're the star of the team, you cannot show up your teammates in front of other people. You just can't do it. It poisons the entire culture. It creates resentment. It makes players who already can't criticize you because of your status feel even more powerless. Think about what's happening in those moments when Caitlin visibly shows frustration with a teammate or dismisses something Stephanie White is trying to tell her. Her teammates are watching, they see it, they know she messed up, they know the coach is right, but they also know they can't say anything because she's Caitlin Clark. She's the franchise. She's the reason they're on national television. So they have to swallow their frustration and keep playing, even though the team dynamic is being damaged right in front of them. And it's not just her teammates who notice. The referees see it too. When you're constantly showing up the refs making exaggerated gestures, having long conversations complaining about calls, you're building a reputation. Refs talk to each other. They know before the game even starts what kind of player you are. And if you've established yourself as someone who's going to complain about everything, you're going to get fewer benefit of the doubt calls. That's just human nature.
As much as her size will allow her to do. Kelsey Mitchell's not perfect, but she's not the point guard. She's not the face of the league. She's not the most influential player on that team. So I got higher expectations. And Dre, your reaction to what I showed about Caitlin Clark and my belief, she's uncoachable in the same way that Allen Iverson was uncoachable, and he and Larry Brown went at it, and eventually they reached a compromise, and they had some success. But Allen Iverson never won an NBA title, and we could run into a similar situation with Caitlin Clark unless she's willing to accept some coaching.
So it's commonly said that criticism is the tax you pay for success. Well,
now we're getting to the comparison that reveals everything. Angel Reese. If Angel Reese was on Caitlin Clark's team, this dysfunction wouldn't exist, because Angel has the personality and the confidence to call out anybody, including a superstar. She would pull Caitlin aside after the first time she showed bad body language and say, "Hey, you can't do that here. We're a team. You don't get to show up the coach or your teammates just because you're frustrated." And Caitlin would have to listen, because Angel has the cachet to say it. But Caitlin has never played with someone like that. She didn't play for Gino Auriemma at UConn, where that behavior would have been coached out of her freshman year. She didn't play for Dawn Staley at South Carolina, where team culture is everything and no player is bigger than the program. She played at Iowa, where she was the program, and now she's in Indiana with a roster that was assembled poorly, a coaching staff that's trying to establish authority but doesn't have the organizational support to do it, and teammates who don't have the standing to check her when she's out of line. The Allen Iverson comparison becomes even more relevant when you remember what actually made that situation work for as long as it did. It wasn't just Larry Brown and Allen Iverson figuring it out. It was Pat Croce, the team president, stepping in and forcing both of them to compromise. He told Iverson, "We're not trading you, but you have to listen to this coach." He told Brown, "You're not getting rid of him, so figure out how to make this work." And they did, for a while. They made the finals, but they never won a championship because ultimately the compromise wasn't enough.
From the locker room to the staff, the Indiana Fever, there are a lot of people in the organization that I don't know, they're hiding in a cave somewhere. Amber Cox assembled a horrible roster. There's a lot of people that are not answering to the call for what they've done. They've dropped the ball. It's a toxic work environment. I mean, you got a head coach who wanted to debut her brand new custom-made Stephanie White sneakers on the same day as Caitlin Clark big sneaker reveal with Nike. It is nasty. It's ridiculous. They either got to blow it up and Stephanie White and some of the players are gone and the entire front office, or just trade Caitlin Clark. This relationship is beyond repair. It's not fixable. It needs to end.
Look at that defensive possession. Third quarter, 4-point game, and Caitlin Clark is standing flat-footed, giving Pow Pow 3 feet of space to launch an open three. No closeout, no hand up, no effort to contest the shot. That's not a defensive breakdown. That's not a missed assignment. That's a player who doesn't care about defense because she only wants to focus on offense. Charles confirmed what every coach already knew. In the film session before that game, the Indiana Fever coaching staff absolutely told Caitlin to get up on Pow Pow. They told her not to give her any space. They told her that if there's a screen, she needs to go over the top of it because Pow Pow can shoot. And Caitlin either didn't listen or didn't care. She played the possession like someone who thinks defense is optional. And here's the brutal truth that Maurice has been trying to explain. Yes, the entire Indiana Fever team is bad defensively. Yes, Kelsey Mitchell gets blown by. Yes, other players make mistakes. But when you're the point guard, when you're the leader, when you're the highest paid player and the face of the franchise, your defensive effort sets the tone for everyone else. If Caitlin Clark doesn't care about defense, why should anyone else?
Man, you got to put her in the right environment if you're going to teach her anything. And they haven't done it, and probably their organization isn't built to do it.
Well, Caitlin Clark, like you said, has played a certain way her whole life. High school, college, a rookie year in the WNBA. And if not Dre, Maurice, if you and Jason are right, then that means she's not coachable. Because all they're trying to do now is say, hey, you can't play that way. You got to play a different way, fix your body language, be more accountable.
Steve nailed it with one phrase. She hates her work environment, and you can see it in every game. The body language, the frustration, the visible disgust when things don't go her way. This is someone who's miserable, and it's affecting everything about her performance and her relationships with her teammates. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Is it the environment that's making her miserable, or is she making the environment miserable? Because from the outside, it looks like the Indiana Fever have tried to build around her. They brought in Kelsey Mitchell, who's one of the best scorers in the league. They added Aaliyah Boston, the Rookie of the Year from the previous season. They hired Stephanie White, who has Indiana roots and WNBA coaching experience. They're playing her huge minutes and letting her run the offense. So what exactly about this environment is so terrible that it justifies the constant negative body language and the resistance to coaching? The comparison Steve made to John Stockton and Pistol Pete Maravich is perfect. Great players don't always make spectacular plays. They make routine plays at an extremely high level. They do the fundamental things over and over again with precision and consistency. Caitlin wants every play to be a highlight, every pass to be no look, every shot to be from 30 feet, and that's not winning basketball at this level.
I want to, Luke, call up the most telling play to me was the pow three-pointer and just how lazy that defense was. This is unacceptable. Third quarter of a competitive game, you just hit a layup. It's right at Caitlin Clark hits the layup at the rim, and they come back down court. And I find this effort appalling on Pow. Yeah, this is it. Flat-footed, and no real check. That is the play. And what's the score here? 4-point game, and that's your defensive effort. Charles, that looks bad in the film session. No,
you're making my point, Jason. You're making my point. Now, I wasn't in the practice for the Indiana Fever, but I would guarantee you, I'd bet everything that I have that the coaching staff said in the breakdown, you got to be up on Pow.
Here's what makes this situation so fascinating and so frustrating at the same time. Caitlin Clark is playing a low IQ style of basketball, and nobody expected that from a two-parent Catholic girl who was raised with structure and discipline. The assumption was that she'd be coachable, that she'd be a good teammate, that she'd understand the game at a high level and make smart decisions. But what we're seeing is someone who's been allowed to play hero ball her entire life, and now that she's in an environment where that doesn't work, she doesn't know how to adjust. Jason's comparison to Kelsey Mitchell is important because it highlights the difference between someone who understands their role and someone who thinks they should be able to do whatever they want. Kelsey Mitchell sticks to her role. She's a scorer. When she gets the ball, her job is to create a shot and try to get a bucket. Sometimes that requires dribbling. Sometimes that requires taking a difficult shot. But she's not trying to be the point guard. She's not trying to run the offense. She's not trying to do things that aren't in her skill set. She knows what she's good at, and she does those things. Caitlin, on the other hand, wants to do everything. She wants to bring the ball up. She wants to run the offense. She wants to take the difficult shots. She wants to make the spectacular passes, and when her teammates don't execute exactly how she envisions it, she gets frustrated and shows it. That's not leadership. That's not being a good teammate. That's being someone who thinks the game revolves around them. And the most damning part of all of this, the constant showing up of referees. Most of the women on the Indiana Fever roster handle themselves professionally. They might disagree with a call for a brief moment, but they move on. The exaggerated long conversations with referees, the constant facial expressions, the visible frustration aimed at the officials, it's all coming from one person, and it's creating a reputation that's going to follow her for the rest of her career. Jason's point about the Indiana Fever failing to create the right classroom for Caitlin is probably the most controversial take in this entire discussion, but there's truth to it. If you want to teach someone effectively, you need to create an environment where they're receptive to learning. And maybe Caitlyn would be more receptive to coaching if she was surrounded by players who came from similar backgrounds, who understood her personality, who could communicate with her in a way that resonates. The Kate Martin example is telling. When Kate was on the roster, Caitlyn seemed happier. The locker room seemed more cohesive. And maybe that's not a coincidence, but here's the problem with that argument. You can't build an entire WNBA roster around making one player comfortable. You have to put together the best team possible to win games. And if that player can't function unless everything is perfectly tailored to their preferences, then maybe they're the problem, not the environment. The situation has reached a point where it's beyond repair. This is a toxic work environment, and it doesn't matter whose fault it is anymore. Stephanie White wanted to debut her custom sneakers on the same day as Caitlyn's big Nike reveal. That's either incredibly tone-deaf or deliberately antagonistic. Either way, it shows that there's no unity in this organization. The front office assembled a roster that doesn't fit together. The coaching staff is trying to implement a system that the star player won't buy into. The teammates are walking on eggshells around someone who's supposed to be their leader, and the star player is visibly miserable every time she steps on the court. Something has to give. Either the Indiana Fever need to blow up everything around Caitlyn, fire Stephanie White, trade half the roster, bring in players who fit her personality better, and hope that changes the culture. Or they need to trade Caitlin Clark to a team that's better equipped to handle her, that has the veteran leadership to check her when she's out of line, that has the coaching staff with enough credibility to demand she buys in, and that has the organizational structure to support all of it. Because what's happening right now isn't working for anyone. Caitlyn's not happy, her teammates aren't happy, the coaching staff is frustrated, the front office is watching their investment struggle, and the fans are watching the most talented player in women's basketball waste her potential because she won't accept coaching and she won't adjust her game to fit what's required at this level. The Allen Iverson comparison keeps coming back because it's the perfect parallel. Iverson had all the talent in the world. He was must-watch television. He put up incredible numbers. He made the All-Star team every year, and he made one finals appearance and never won a championship. Because at the end of the day, basketball is a team game, and if you can't make your teammates better, if you can't accept coaching, if you can't sacrifice your individual preferences for the good of the team, you're going to fall short when it matters most. So the question for Caitlin Clark is simple. Does she want to be Allen Iverson, an incredibly talented player who never quite reached the